I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpm.fm to discover more.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and today we are diving into a thought-provoking and hilarious conversation all about Eureka Day. It's a new play that just opened on Broadway recently, and this play brilliantly explores the deeply personal and often divisive dynamics of community decision-making and sets it against the backdrop of a mumps outbreak. It's an ensemble piece filled with humor, heartbreak, and above all, a lesson in listening. This is something that I think we all need to read into a little bit. The themes that the cast has to get through in this story are not dissimilar to what we have to get through as a society right now. So listening in general is an art that seems to be vanishing in today's polarized world. I was invited to cover the red carpet, which happened back on December 16th for their opening night, and this is where all of these interviews come from. You'll hear from the incredibly talented cast, including Thomas Middleditch, Amber Gray, Bill Irwin, Chelsea Yakura Kurtz, and of course Jessica Hecht, and director Anna Shapiro and playwright Jonathan Spector, getting their creative perspectives were just amazing. Everyone discusses the importance of nuance, empathy, and the many shades of gray in what we often see as a black and white world. Eureka Day doesn't just entertain. It forces you to reflect on your own biases and the way we communicate with those who think differently. Stick around to hear how this incredible production is resonating with audiences and leaving everyone something to ponder. So as always, make sure to follow me on social media. Visit Patreon for the video version of this episode. And now, everyone, please enjoy this episode with the cast and creatives of Eureka Day.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
I'm Thomas Middleditch. I'm playing Eli in the play Eureka Day.
Do you seem like you've been typecast again as kind of the nerdy tech guy. So how do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I don't think Eli's too nerdy, or at least I've tried to make him less nerdy. But yes, tech guy is on. Now he's more like he's like the rested invested guy. He's the successful tech guy as opposed to, you know, the other guy.
Rested invested. I want to start using that everywhere. I need to be rested invested.
Oh, don't we all? Come on.
So this is a show on the outside. It's a comedy. It's very lighthearted on the outside, but I think it deals with some very serious internal conflict between people who may think they know each other and who may feel very strongly about one belief or another. So when you're approaching these characters, without spoiling anything too much, I guess, like there are two fundamental differences that are emerging between one side and another side of this board of directors at this school. And so when you're approaching this, given everything that's going on with our country, our politics, our climate, like, how does this hit home for you?
Even if it's not this particular issue, the nameless issue that you gotta come see in order to find out, I think what we're realizing is that, like, it seems like everyone in America, maybe the world, no, but at least in America, has like their own truth, like their objective truth, kind of like applies to a lot, except for XYZ, right? Be it whatever, be it climate change or the election, the 2020 election, whatever it is, right? And what I love about the play and what I love about the characters that the playwright's written is that, like, everyone's coming in with the best intentions. There's no like malevolent force. There's no Iago type character like in here, like causing chaos, and no one thinks, like, everyone is advocating for the reality that they feel is most honest and most truthful to themselves. And that's what's kind of like, that's like the internal pain and struggle of it, is because you're watching all these people who have, like, not only the best intentions, but they're all equipped with the right, like, progressive lexicon to, like, pad every sentiment that they throw forth. So, like, everything comes in with, like, the right amount of zhuzh to make it more palatable, and
like overly cleansed and too PC sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the fun of the play at times. But then I think the commentary is like, you can come in to the room with all of that and still find something that you're like, wait, you believe what? oh, now we have a problem, you know.
Is there something in your personal life that this is kind of like illuminated for you? So you're looking out, or from the outside looking in, like Tom was looking at the inside of this play. You see how these characters, because they're not listening to each other, have this struggle. Have you been able to like pull that out in personal life and apply that to anything?
Yeah, sure. Do I want to talk about it? No, I don't know. But yeah, of course. I mean, I think if you've been alive and paying attention for the past, I don't know, let's just say 10 years, you have noticed that there is like massive divergence in terms of like what feels like the best remedy for a particular situation. I mean, we have a healthy amount of people that believe the earth is flat.
And in real life, yes.
Yeah, that's wild. And then that's like a crazier one. But then like people don't believe in climate change. People don't believe in all this stuff. I don't, to me, when I hear all this stuff, I'm like, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what the motivations are. I think we're incentivized to take hot takes. I think the internet divides us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reasons why is that's a subject for a tome, an ancient tome of books, an encyclopedia of what the actual F. But in terms of this one, we don't really get into the. Well, we get into some of the whys, but it's more so just about like that struggle, and it doesn't feel good when the struggle is resolved. I think the feeling that people often left with is like, really? That's that? Oh, and that's exactly.
Yeah, I get it. So, final question then, just like. This is a play that is bringing laughter, it's bringing light, it's in a very funny way, it's bringing attention on what we've been talking about as I think a pretty serious sort of a topic or way of communicating interpersonally right now. So what do you hope people are going to walk away from, aside from the fact that virtual town halls are terrible, what do you hope people walk away from after all of this?
It depends how you look at it. There's like, it completely depends on your perspective. Because one way of looking at it is like, in order to progress, one has to be cutthroat and just sort of like trim away ideas that don't align with what potentially needs to happen. That you can see protestation as simply like fat that needs to be cut. There is a slightly nihilistic takeaway of being like, two like opposing viewpoints are so drawn in the sand and they can't come around. So it really is just like majority rules, and that's how you move forward. Or everyone sacrifices a tremendous amount in order to keep going, and then you keep going at your own personally diminished capacity. That's part of the challenge of it. It's like, how do you make peace with your, politically opposed family member? Some people cut them out of their lives. Some people just vow to never talk about it. Some people continue on at a diminished rate. It's hard.
I prefer, I think, the latter option. So at least we can meet in the middle and have some sort of compromise and not like totally hate each other.
What if the compromise comes at a great cost? Like what if the compromise comes at either a cost to your own conviction or a cost to the greater good, or
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. Congratulations. Happy opening. Wonderful to meet you. I know where that hand's been, and I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I'm Anna Shapiro, and I'm the director of Eureka Day.
And what attracted you to this project, aside from what I suspect is the need to exemplify just how ridiculous virtual town halls are?
Well, I was really drawn to it because I felt like when I read it, it was that rare piece of theater that didn't feel like it had an axe to grind, and yet it had a really strong point of view. So, nobody has a bigger axe to grind than I do, so I'm not judging that. But it was really cool to interact with a play that was kind of looking at us and with such compassion and such patience and such humor. And I thought I could spend some time in that. I could use a little bit of that myself. So
that's interesting you said that. There is no like really individual strong protagonist. or antagonist. Sorry, like
Yeah, it's a total ensemble piece, and it's everybody shares. It's like a lot of homogeneous places, right, and homogeneous groups, right, where we all think we agree on the most important things, so we assume we agree about everything. And I feel like that's also a worthy road to go down in terms of, like, we might need to look a little more closely at the nuance of belief, because often you can have all the belief you want, but somebody else's experience may trump that belief.
Right, that's interesting. The lived experience will often trump the belief in like you said, just one weird thing.
Yes.
Because we're the same. We get 9 times out of 10 like fundamental core beliefs. We are the same, but then there's one thing that we could have been friends for 20 years that all of a sudden we find this out about each other and we can't get past it. Are these the topics that you were going through during the rehearsal process?
They are, and it's interesting, right? Because even though Jonathan wrote it pre-COVID, it was prescient around the idea of that exact thing you're talking about, which is COVID hit, and all of a sudden you thought you knew your friend, and then you found out, wow, we really have some really essential disagreements here, and that what do we do when that happens, and how do we deal with that, and quite frankly, the kind of failure of dogma, even if it's progressive dogma.
Was it a conscious effort to just kind of have the audience or have the cast get upstaged by the projections during the town hall?
It's 100% what's supposed to happen. I mean, and it's, again, so prescient, right? Because what it really points out, when my husband saw it, he said, I felt so seen in that thing, because he's like, I just would, like, my shoulders dropped, because I thought, yeah, you know what? You see the people in the room who have to have some semblance of decorum, and then the people who aren't in the room and what they get to do, and you just think, this is impossible. These are irreconcilable conditions for us. And so, yes, it was absolutely meant to be that way, and I know that people are enjoying that, and that makes me very happy.
Oh, it's what I went home and I told my wife about immediately, and I was like, listen, we've sat through so many of what I just saw on stage, and every one of these characters in that virtual room that we were saying, what's her name? Kaufman, Catherine? What's the emoji lady? The person who only speaks in emojis. I'm like, I can't stand that person.
We know that person. Well, there's the other moment, too, when Bill Irwin's character brings out the big Post-it pad, and 80% of the audience goes, oh no, because we all know what that means now too. So I think it's a kind of loving but intelligent analysis of our situation.
So with everything going on in the real world, being able to escape to theater, to live theater, is still such a gift that we have now. So granted that we're watching something in Eureka Day that is more close to real life than maybe we even realize, what do you hope people are going to take home and internalize after seeing it?
I always think that when you're doing a play, you have to, the real project is that you want to make the audience's life bigger, make their world bigger. And whether it makes their world bigger because they're seeing something new, an experience that's beyond theirs, or whether they're seeing something that makes them feel seen, so that connects them to more of the world. So to me, I just think there is a lot to be said for a shared wish, but those wishes need to be more generously interrogated, and we need to recognize how hard it is to be good. It's just really hard to be good. And deciding you're right and that everybody else is crazy, that doesn't get us anywhere.
No, it's not going to move us in the direction we need to together. It's not going to get us everywhere. And that's actually what I took away after seeing it, was I was like, these people some of the people that I have kind of wanted to write off because one thing or another in the last 12 years of elections now have come out in one way or another. I'm just like, you know what? Like, where is the common ground? But more importantly, why do we each think the way we do? Because there is something to learn even if we don't believe in it.
I agree. And at a certain point, you have got to shut up and start listening. You just have to. You just have to. You know, it's interesting because you hear so many people say about our president-elect, like, oh, he personifies everything we teach our children not to do, right? He's mean. He's a bully. He's calls people names. He like the most rudimentary, just behaviors that we say don't do that, and yet we're not listening. We tell our kids to listen too, and 77 million people are saying you're not paying attention. So I don't know how much more we have to learn.
Well, come see Eureka Day. Figure out what we're talking about because you cannot miss this. Thank you so much. Congratulations and happy opening.
Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode.
My name is Amber Gray, and I play Karina in the show. I'm the newbie in town. In this community, I'm new to the group.
And you bring a much-needed, different, and interesting perspective to this group of individuals who have been friends for a long time and now coming in as somebody that's not quite the same as them. Yeah. So speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that they all necessarily agree. I don't know that the other four are aligned, but they have a way that they are used to functioning together, and I'm a little like, what's going on here? They're very long-winded in trying to find consensus, which I admire about the group. They get a little like talking around things, and I'm like, let's just cut to the chase, people. I'm a little more direct than they are all willing to be.
Well, plus, I mean, you're just the only person of color in the group as well, or presenting as person of color, right? Because I guess, yeah. So there's one. Miko, I guess, is not a straight white person, right. But still, like, you come in with these values and these perspectives that are just like, listen, like you said, let's cut to the chase, let's cut through the bullshit and talk about this. And so, like, are you bringing this into our everyday life, or bringing everyday life into the show, into your character? Because there's a lot of parallel right now between what's happening on stage and what we're about to, or what we're living through.
I think there's parallel in that, I mean, there's just lots of arguing about different subjects. There's not parallel in that I don't think people are listening to each other very well right now, and I don't think they're bothering to find consensus. And I think the assumption is if we disagree that you are wrong or you are dumb, yes, uneducated, which is not true. Two truths can exist at the same time, and I admire that about the play. On the race front, I don't, there was a period where I was like, I don't know that I should be the one to play this. There's one line where I say, well, I can just say as a black woman, but it's cut off. I never finished the word black. And it's in the first scene. And when I started to read it, I was like, oh, it can't be me, because I'm, pretty white presenting in many ways. And as a biracial woman, I don't identify as black and I don't identify as white. I'm not either. I'm both. And only other mutts understand what that experience is. So you know what I mean? But I do acknowledge that white people see me as a black woman. And that is like a fascinating thing of colorism to deal with on a daily basis.
I think I just got called out, and I love it. I love it. Because this is important for me because my wife is Asian, so we have mutt babies. We have half Asian, half white children, kids, and so this struck home for me on a lot of different levels. And my wife and I have talked about, like, we want to let our kids choose what box they want to check when they're asked what race are you, or if you want to check multiple races, go ahead. If you have to pick one, you get to pick. We're not going to tell that to you.
I mean, it's hard to pick one. I'm telling you, I have not had a white experience in my life, and nor have I had a black experience. I've had a biracial experience, which is not a nuance that anyone is interested in talking about unless, again, you're another mutt. What are you going to do? I'm
fascinated, and I'm going to reach out to the press team because we need to have a full interview just about this. I would love to do. Okay, so
yeah.
So back to you.
So it's just that one line, and then as I finished the play, I was like, oh, it can just be a woman of color, and that's fine. I felt okay about saying it, but there have been many jobs I have chosen not to audition for or take in my life because of this conversation. I don't feel right about playing certain roles. I think it's fine for me to be playing Karina. But yeah, we can totally nerd out about it sometime.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, thank you. So Eureka Day specifically, I mean, like, we're going through a time when there's a mumps outbreak in the story, and this was written before COVID, and just so happened to parallel. I'm sure the lines were added after it was written to, like, sort of indicate a little bit of humor of, like, now we're about to go through it again, foreshadowing, which I think the topics that were brought out and the things you bring out and have the audience think about as people on stage, delivering this gift of a story to us. It walks away, like you said, or we walk away as an audience member thinking like, maybe I'm not completely wrong or right. There's a combination, there's a middle ground, but like you said, it's not all black and white, because 90% of what you and I may agree upon is the same and very strong, but that 10%, can we get past it? And if not, why? It's all about the listening.
Yes, and the thing is, you might not be able to get past it, which is heartbreaking, I think, especially when there's only like 5-10% that you don't agree on. It's shocking for people. Yeah, and I'm assuming you've seen the show. We don't succeed on that front, which is really hard. Yeah, and I think most people identify with all 5 and disagree with all 5, which is good that they're that nuanced and complicated. Like, I agree with Karina in many ways, but she is a hypocrite at the end of the day, in that she sent her kid to a private school in the first place. You know? So, and I have been in a political activist community in New York City for 20 years, Reverend Billy and the Stop Shopping Choir, and the premise of it being like a fake church service is really fun, because you can say, as an American, you should pick your 3 battles, but in 500 other ways, you will be a hypocrite. You will be hurting the earth in some way, hurting a people in some way by buying this product, right? Most people don't think about where it came from. So I know that activism world really well, and it is true that a lot of them really walk the walk and go to jail all the time and change laws, but then when it comes to their own children, it's tricky shit.
Well, it's tough. It's tough to put your money where your mouth is, and like everybody doing their part is one thing, but you can be like, oh, this one time I'm just not going to recycle. This one time I'm not going to whatever, or I'll buy from this product and that company or whatever. But then when everybody does that and it adds up, you've got an ocean of plastic in the middle of the ocean that won't go away, right?
That's right.
I mean, and not to get too political about it, but I feel like the message behind all of this comedy of Eureka Day is, it's not a political one. It's an understanding. It's a lesson of understanding that we need to apply to politics.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, totally.
But what do you hope people are going to walk away from after seeing it?
Honestly, that they just try to listen with a bit more intention and the goal of, I grew up with this lesson of you can be right or you can have love in your life.
Ooh.
It's deep. Really deep.
I'm processing this.
So I hope they walk away with like, you don't always need to prove your point, and and nor do you have to agree on all things to get along and move forward.
You can be right, or you can have love in your life. I'm going through this Rolodex of scenarios in my head right now that I want to go back and tell the people that I've argued with in the years and be like, can we just go back to love, please? Because this is ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, I have plenty of white family members that I don't talk about race with.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think you just need to call me out. We need to have a whole interview. Call me out. Tell me how... All right.
I have very racist family members.
Oh, boy. I'm sorry. I do too. Congratulations. Happy opening. I'm not going to take more of your time here. The show really is very wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Jonathan Spector, and I wrote Eureka Day.
And you wrote this play, Eureka Day, before the pandemic, ironically, because it deals with sort of a pandemic-y outbreak.
Yeah, I wrote the play. The play premiered in 2018. And it deals with an outbreak of mumps at a progressive private school in Berkeley, California. So it's in some ways, some of the same things that we've struggled with kind of more broadly post-COVID, and in some ways, very different.
How much personal experience, if any, did this come from? Where did the idea come from? Because I feel like there's a lot... I guess back in 2018, there wasn't a lot of talk about what this show is about, of like fundamental difference of vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, or maybe it was, and it just like came to the forefront with things, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think the valence of it was very different back then. It was... there had been an outbreak of measles in Disneyland in, I want to say 2014, or 2015, I can't remember now. And that led over time to California, where I lived, changing their laws from the loosest vaccination requirements for schools in the country to among the strictest. And so it was kind of in the ether a little bit, and I had a commission from this theater, Aurora, in Berkeley, and wanted to write a really Berkeley play for them, and had a few conversations with friends or people I knew who were at least as smart and well educated as I was, and with whom I had all the same politics and worldview, and then discovered they didn't vaccinate their kids, and so that was very just sort of disorienting, and so that sort of made me curious, and how we could kind of live in the same world in all respects except for this one area where we lived in different realities. So that was kind of the genesis of the play, is just kind of following that through, as well as and this is a place where things have really shifted. At the time, what made it an interesting idea to explore in a play was that pre-COVID, vaccines or sort of vaccine skepticism was one of the few, maybe the only issue where knowing people did not vaccinate their kids did not necessarily tell you anything else about their politics, because they were anti-vaxxers on the left and anti-vaxxers on the right. Some of the communities with the highest rates of unvaccination back then were sort of the most liberal, most privileged communities. So it allowed for a situation like in the play where you have people who basically agree about everything except for this thing, versus if it's about climate change or gun control, knowing how people think about one of those issues is kind of going to tell you what they think about most of them, and it's sort of less interesting.
But that's not how Eureka Day is, because they, like you said, they all seem to get along for most of everything except this one particular topic, and it is intensely personal for two of our characters. And there's personal experience that these characters has that influences whether or not they really like it, and it just calls out the fact that nothing's 100% safe in any fact, but. I guess for you trying to write a play without a strict protagonist, sort of the threat of illness is the protagonist, right? But there isn't one person is coming in being the bad guy.
Yeah, no, it's very much an ensemble play, and I think it's very much a play about, if there's a protagonist, and maybe it's the school, or the values of the school that people everyone, believes in and wants to uphold, and it's just they can't find a way to do that, that they can agree with, or in some ways a very basic conflict between sort of what's good for you versus what's good for sort of the community.
It's tough that you have a lot of parents who feel they know what's good for their children. The parents are obviously trying to do what's best for what they feel is best for the children, but when you start imposing those views onto other adults, that's where things get a little bit dicey.
Well, it's tricky, and this is why, and again, COVID, is a little more complicated than, the mumps or measles vaccines, where if you get the vaccine, you then do not only do you protect yourself, but you also protect you from getting it and passing it on to other people. So it is really, a situation in which letting everyone just make their own individual choice doesn't really work, because it only works if it's a collective choice. And so that's where the sort of conflict.
That's the herd immunity, but congratulations. Thank you for chatting. Happy opening night. The play is so good. I loved it, and I need to come back and see it again, if not just for the virtual town hall.
I'm Chelsea Yokora Kurtz, and I play Mako in Eureka Day.
And your character Mako's one of the most interesting characters to me, because I didn't know where your subplot was going. I guess it's part of the main plot, but I didn't know where things were going with you, because you've got kind of this love triangle-esque thing going while you're being a parent who knows best for her kids, but also trying this whole thing is dealing with so much real-world material, right? So for you approaching this, did you know where your character was going before you reached the end of the script, and then how does it personally? How you bring in the real world into this?
I did not know where it was going as I was reading the script for the first time. I don't want to give too much away, but Mako has a big shift at the end, a big change in her point of view, and that honestly felt like such a gift, because I got to really explore in the research that I was doing both sides of the argument, in terms of like to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. We had an incredible dramaturg also who gave us this unbelievably comprehensive packet, books to read, podcasts to listen to, documentaries to watch about this debate. And in informing myself about it, I'm just so grateful that I get to play both sides, essentially.
I mean, for the people who are out there are people in the real world who straddle the fence on this kind of stuff, but there are people who are vehemently stuck to one side or another. And I think the message, my interpretation after watching the show, I walked away being like, okay, I really disagree with what I'm seeing, but I need to listen more, right? Listening is what we're missing.
Yes. I think that is one of the real gifts that Jonathan Spector, our playwright, has given to us, is that he humanizes everybody's point of view. And while, I'll just come out and say, like, I believe in vaccinations, I believe in the science of it. I think it's very important, not just on an individual level, but on a public health level in the way we take care of each other to vaccinate. I also think that it is a deeply complex issue and the way people make decisions is not often, and certainly not always, logical, and there is so much affecting the way we make decisions about things like this that comes into play, and I really think this play gives us that, and it does make me think when I'm having, and not just conversations about vaccines, but conversations where I'm on the opposite ideological side with anybody, I do really try to think now about what are the other things that I'm not seeing that are affecting the way they're making these decisions, which I think is important. I think in this particular moment that we are in, it's so very easy to look at the other side and think that's wrong or that's evil, and I do think it's the only way to find any way forward that doesn't involve us like just burning it all down is we have to listen to each other, and we have to respect the fact that there's a lot going into the way we're making these decisions.
Yeah. Have you received feedback from the audience so far, like leading through the previews, now leading up to opening night? What kind of feedback have you gotten from people who may be on the fence, or even just like they didn't know what to expect when they came to see it in the first place?
Mm-hmm. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. People are really enjoying the comedy of it. There's one scene in particular that I hope you all come and see, but where friends in corporate, friends in HR, friends who run theater companies, they're all like, I have been in that meeting. That has happened to me. I know what that is. And the comedy of like seeing yourself reflected, I think, is wonderful. But I have also had people say, like, I'm going to be thinking about this play for days. And I think that is like one of the greatest compliments you can receive in terms of doing a new play, that it made people think.
I agree. It made me think. It made me like realize that I need to listen to the people who I may have previously sort of like put in a box. And I consider myself a very open-minded person. Yeah. And I think most of us do to a certain extent, right? Unless, you're that grumpy curmudgeon like, get off my lawn, damn kids. But when we all of a sudden realize that we're friends with somebody who feels very differently about a different topic, it brings a side of us out that we didn't know we had. It brings out conversation that in the other person that they didn't know, that you didn't know you could have with them. The thing about it is that I think it truly is a tool to educate people, to listen to each other, and to really get to understand, to teach people that you don't have to agree with somebody to understand why they feel the way they do.
Right, exactly. And you don't have to agree with them to listen to them, and that listening to them doesn't mean there's an expectation that you will agree with them, but that listening is the most important part. And I do think that often you will find that people on the other side of an ideological debate, mostly what they want is just to be heard. They just want to be listened to.
That's everything. Kids, adults, everything. You just want to be heard. I get it. Well, thank you so much. Happy opening. Congratulations. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode. Before we get into the conversation, for those who are listening in potty form, patio audio, I'm doing great.
Glad you said it and not me.
Patio form. Those who are listening in audio only, please introduce yourself and who you are in the show.
Well, for anybody watching or listening in patio, I'm Bill Irwin, and I'm an old-time actor. I've been around a long time, and I'm playing Don, the head of the school.
I love the absolute cluelessness that you bring to Don.
Well, it's tempting to say it's every school principal I ever had, but actually that's not true. You know, it's such a hard job. And as Anna, our director, said, I saw her here in your chair a couple minutes ago, she said, it's like Don seems like, I'm just out to lunch. And then you realize, whoa, he just pulled a fast one. He just managed to get the meeting finished on time. Yeah.
So, do you have kids? Have you been through this sort of situation?
I have one son. He's 34 years old. He's coming this weekend, and he's going to say, "Oh, Dad, that was triggering," because he went to 3 different independent schools.
And like your character of Don is this kind of like this sort of trying to be this neutral through line just to make sure that everyone doesn't claw each other's eyes out.
Yes. You know, that's one of the questions I had to ask the director. I read the play. So, okay, is this guy dedicated to avoiding any confrontation? Or is he, get people to it so they really get to the meat of it? And she said, I think it's half of one, sixth of the other, because leadership is the most bizarre so-called skill or gift.
Right.
And I'm not sure how much Don manages in the course of this play, but I do think it's a story, too, of loss. It's a very, very funny play. I mean, as a comic actor, you're like, wow, there's a lot of laughs you have to negotiate to get your next line in, and it's a hugely funny play that Jonathan wrote, but it is a very acute set of, 5 character studies, too.
Yeah, every character is coming at it with their own perspective, their own values, which for the most part, like the Venn diagram of how all of the characters overlap fundamentally and ideologically is very, very similar, except for some major issue of vaccinations or not, which I think kind of reflects the real world.
I think you're right, it does. It does. And there's a way in which human beings, just innately, DNA, tribally, we like to be together, and we're safer when we're together. But then when we get down to certain decisions, realize, I can't be together with everybody. Yeah. And there are big decisions and responsibilities that have to be taken. So it is a very interesting 95 minutes in the theater, this play.
What do you hope people are going to take away after watching this? Like, if they walk out, and what do you want them to hold with them?
To really get to your question, it means taking on some things. I hope people come out of this theater saying, whoa, do I love to laugh in a Broadway house. There's no gift like it. And whoa, is that a set of questions? And whoa, I better think about my kids today.
I think about my kids. I went home and hugged my kids. I kissed them. I saw a night show, and then I went home. I checked it, and I gave them a goodnight kiss. I was like, "Wake up! I gotta love you." No. I give them a nice kiss, and it was, it's one of these things that reminds you that, why you have children and why you want to protect them.
Yeah, and what your job is, how huge your job is.
Yeah.
When we first saw the script, I thought some of Don's. They're pulling us away. But I thought some of Don's dialogue was okay. Well, that's grandiosity. He's saying humbleness and gratefulness, and that's because he's full of woke progressive talk. But now we've gotten to the play to this point, I realize, oh no, he's right. We have an awesome responsibility. That's a line from,
You really do. Well, congratulations. Happy opening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You do such a wonderful job at the show.
You are very, very
Thank you.
I'm Jessica Hecht, and I play Suzanne.
My favorite Jessica in the whole wide world. Everything you are in, I cannot take my eyes off of you.
You're very kind. I think I get to play amazing characters, so I feel lucky.
You do. And Summer 1976 was, again, one of my favorite things, to see you and Laura landing together. And everything you, Jessica, bring to characters. This is going to be a whole thing about just me gushing over you. But But yeah, everything you bring is so real in a very sort of lighthearted way. Like you make it funny without really hitting people over the head with like, I'm being funny now. Like, but you're so real, but it comes across as so authentic.
I hope so. That's always what I think is interesting about acting, is finding something that you can make super personal. And I'm probably like a slightly idiosyncratic person, so I guess when I do make something personal, it might be a little bit on its side. But that's what I.
What attracted you to this role in particular? Because there's no specific. It's an ensemble piece. There's not really an antagonist or a protagonist. It's just moving towards a common goal. And then your character specifically, though, goes through a bunch of conflict.
Yeah, big conflict. She's really the most important thing that drew me to her is that she's obsessively interested in children's well-being. She just loves children. And I do too, for better or worse. My own kids are always like, you cannot keep looking at that child, or you cannot engage with these children that are not your own. Right. Like I am the person on the subway trying desperately to get the child in the stroller to make eye contact. So anyway, I think the sincerity of her love for children, and everybody's love for children in the show, was pretty interesting. And then this idea of how many personal truths we can coexist with is very meaningful. Yeah.
I want to sit with us for a second. How many personal truths we can coexist with? Yeah, because if we're believing in something strongly, if we're doing a good job, I think, in putting ourselves out there, we've by nature got to be a bit hypocritical, because depending on what situation you're in, it dictates different results.
Absolutely. And I have the same political beliefs as the characters in the play. I mean, they're all very liberal, and but I certainly believe that we should find empathy for people who have, obviously this is a moment to like garner our empathy, and I think the play investigates the few issues when you could for a moment say, okay, I get it. Yeah. I get why that person could believe that. Yeah. And I think it's something we have to school ourselves in.
That's what I took away. I've been telling everybody this. My big takeaway after seeing it was just that even if I really disagree with somebody, there is a reason that they believe that. And even the baddest bad guy in the world doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a bad guy. I'm going to, how can I
go against public opinion and do this outrageous thing? Well, okay, we could look at Luigi Mangione as a perfect case and say, like, you're going to do something terrible, and look how much empathy he has because of the complexity of what, for some people, it was the motivation. I mean, this obvious, that he's quite mentally ill, but you could look at the most desperate acts and kind of see how people have started to empathize.
Right, and just it taught me to, even people that I was disagreeing with through whatever election cycle you pick from our late adult scenario, all the people that I maybe disagreed with or didn't disagree with, it's like nothing can be black and white. And I think that's what Eureka Day highlights really, really well, and especially the way that all of you come together to really sort of pull out the why behind all of it. Yeah. There is a bit of the it's my way or the highway, but at the end I feel like there is a lot of understanding that you try to have with each other.
Yeah, I think we do, and I think if you actually, certain great directors, this is a very interesting thing about directing. If you really understand how to craft a play, particularly a new play, you're very good at telling the actors what the beginning, the middle, and the end of the play is. Yep. And Anna is superb at that. And I think what would be interesting to do with this play if people watched it and had took offense at one character's perspective? If you said, well, this is the beginning, this is the middle, and then this is revealed at the end, do you still feel it's as hateful as you? I mean, if you were that person, right, would you have the same opinion? If that's really, so anyway, it's interesting how much. How much thought we have to put into our black and white opinions? Yeah,
well, nothing's black and white. That's what I've been coming out with.
Very knee-jerk characters in this play, and you have to say, okay, like if we didn't have this knee-jerk response, right, would we get it, and would we be able to coexist? Anyway.
Have your friends, your family come, like especially your kids too, who are like.
My daughter is coming tonight. She's a big opening night girl. My husband came already, and he thought it was he thought it was really resonant, and he He loved it, and he's a big proponent of public school, which I am too, and I'll leave it at that. But because that sort of comes up, like at the end, why don't we all just go to public school?
Right.
And their reasoning for not going is also very moving and real. So
Yeah, I mean that's a conversation that hits very close to home. Living in New York, I mean we have. I do. I have an 8 and now 10-year-old.
Oh, do they go to public or private?
Private.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. My son tried private school for a couple of years, and I was sad that we did. But my daughter and previous to those 2 years, my daughter and my son all just went to public school, and I couldn't be a more fierce advocate for them. But I understand why people would want to go to private, especially given where you might live or what your kids. There's a beautiful line. My first responsibility is to my children. Yes. Yeah.
What has the feedback been though from like your daughter's coming tonight? You said your husband's seen it together, but like what's been the response so far?
I think people have, for the most part, have been super. They find it very funny, which it is, but I think they find it painfully relatable, and that's been a lot of people have been like, I just am so jarred by how much I relate to the dynamic, and there's a very pivotal scene that everybody also relates to that's brilliantly constructed.
There's something in every one of the characters, and I'm like, there's a little bit of me in every one of them. And I'm trying to understand why, and then why they get along and why they don't, and all that. And it's so well written, so well performed.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor.
Congratulations! Happy open. My hand is sweaty from holding the mic. Well, that's it for the Eureka Day cast and creative interviews from opening night. Since you've made it this far into the episode, number one, thanks for listening to the whole thing. But number two, here's a little clip from my chat with Terrence Mann about Foundation, one of my favorite shows that he happens to be in. He was one of the fancy guests who walked the red carpet, so I grabbed him while I could. All right, so we're going to talk about Foundation. No, I'm kidding.
Please, yeah.
All right. Yeah, dude, will we get another Foundation? When is Foundation Season 3 come?
We finished shooting end of July, and so they've been editing, and they're still editing, and they're just finishing up editing. So after the first of the year, we'll know when Season 3 is coming out.
I'm a fan of sci-fi, space, and time travel-y things, and so this show speaks to me on so many levels.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those levels I don't understand. I hope you do.
I do.
I show up and, we make sense out of it, I guess. Yeah.
No, it's great.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.